Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Zoe and I'm so happy that you clicked on today's video. So it is that time again. We have entered a new month and it is time to talk about all of the books that I read last month in June. And I'm really excited about this because I feel like June was just such a good month for me, not only as far as reading, but just like life in general. I just had a really fun month and I feel like I really needed that. Like sometimes you just need a really good month, and that's what June was for me. But yes, as far as reading goes, it was my second best reading month so far this year as far as how many books I read, and I feel like overall the quality was really good. I enjoyed every book I read. I don't think I rated anything lower than 3 stars, which is really good. I'm really happy about it. So I'm just excited to talk about all the books, so let's just get into it. So I started the month off really strong with one of my favorite authors. I read The Love Wager by Lynn Painter, and oh my goodness, this was just such a fun time. I loved it so much. Basically, this follows Hallie and Jack, who meet at a wedding, they hook up and then don't see each other again until they end up matching on a dating app and decide rather than date each other, they would rather make this love wager where they are having this little competition to see who can fall in love first. But of course, in true rom-com fashion, they end up falling in love with each other instead. And this was just such a sweet and fun story. I loved it so much. Jack and Hallie were such cute characters, and just everything about this was so much fun to read. Lynn Painter is so great at writing romances, but I also feel like she's really mastered the comedy aspect of her books. Like, she is one of the few authors that can make me genuinely laugh out loud, and that's just so rare for me, so it's always such a fun time reading her books. I just really love this one, and I rated it 4.5 stars. Then I ended up reading an arc from a debut author. I read Forgive or Forget Me by Anne Einerson. I think that's how you say it. But this one I was really hesitant going into because there are some pretty heavy topics in it. I would definitely say check the trigger warnings if you're interested in reading it, but I decided to give it a chance and see what I thought, and if it was too heavy, I would just stop reading it. And I'm really happy that I ended up giving it that shot because I was really pleasantly surprised by this book. I had such a good time reading it. This is a childhood friends to lovers, second chance romance, dual POV, dual timeline set in New York City. So all the things that I love. I was really intrigued by it. Basically, it follows Milo and Olivia, who were best friends as kids and then fell in love, but then something happened that broke them apart. So we're seeing like Every Summer After, Love in Other Words type thing here, which 2 books that I absolutely love, so that was fun to me. But years later, Milo is back in the city to see his dad because he's sick and he's gonna pass away, so he's there to say goodbye. And then he finds out that Olivia is actually his dad's caregiver while he is in hospice, so they have a chance to reconnect and kind of figure out the past and have a second chance at love. And I just thought this was such a sweet story. It was very heavy at times and really hard to read occasionally, but I feel like it was just so well done all around, especially for a debut novel. I just really loved the romance, the setting, just everything that happened in it was so good, so well done, and I will definitely read what this author puts out in the future, so I gave this one 4 stars. I just had a really good time with it. Now we entered the part of the month that kind of took up the majority of my time and kind of took over my life for a little bit. I ended up reading the Shatter Me series, and I was so excited to be reading this series because I've wanted to read it for so long, and so I made sure that I set aside some time in June to read the whole series. I did read the first book and the first novella in May, but I wanted to finish it in June, and I'm so happy that I did. I had so much fun. So I want to tell you about all the books, but I can't really because I would be spoiling everything. So I will just tell you what I rated each book and what I thought about each one, like what my favorite parts were. And if you want to talk about the series in depth, I would love to talk about that on my Instagram or something. You can just like message me and we can talk about it because I loved it so much. But I'm just going to really quickly go through all the books. So let's talk about it. So first I read Unravel Me, obviously, and I wasn't really sure what was going to happen in this book because at the end of Shatter Me, I was kind of unsure where the series was going to go, what was going to happen next, but this answered all of my questions and then some. We got to meet so many new characters, got to see how the story was kind of going to continue, and this one was just so fun and action-packed. I seriously loved it. We got more of Warner's character in this book, and I just had such a good time reading it, so I gave this one 4 stars. Such a good time. And then I read the next novella, so I read Fracture Me. This one was from Adam's POV. This was kind of Adam's like last big presence in the series, but I really enjoyed this one because it was all about him wanting to protect his little brother James because he just loves him so much and wanted to make sure that he was safe. And I loved that so much because I love James's character. He's just so cute and sweet, and I want to protect him at all costs, so seeing Adam try to protect him just made me really happy. So I didn't rate the novellas, but I would say that's like my second favorite novella in the series just because of what it centered around. And then I moved on to one of the books that's tied for my favorite in the series. I read Ignite Me, and I was completely obsessed. Like, the series was sold for me with this book. It was just so fun, so good. The romance in this was just so good. I loved the romance with Warner and Juliet. We had so much action in this one, so many big conflicts, and we had kind of like a war going on, and it was just really exciting to read about. It was definitely a page turner. And the ending was just so good. So I really love this one. I gave it 5 stars, hands down. And yeah, definitely one of my favorites in the series, just so much fun. Then I moved straight on to the 4th book because this series is kind of set up in like 2 trilogies. So I went straight into Restore Me, and this one was such a wild time. I wasn't really sure what was gonna happen in it because since it is like 2 trilogies, the 3rd book really wrapped up. But this one was so crazy. We had so many new characters, so many new things that happened. It kind of set up the rest of the series, and it was so much fun. The romance was good, and this one I especially loved because this was the first book where we got Warner's POV, and I just absolutely loved being able to see into his head, see his thoughts, see how much he loves Juliet, and it was just so cute. So really love this one. I wouldn't say this is my favorite in the series, but I did rate it 5 stars. I had such a great time with it. And then I moved on to the next novella. I read Shadow Me, which was really surprising because this one is from Kenji's POV, and I didn't know that we were gonna get anything from Kenji's POV, so it was really exciting to read about because Kenji is just so funny and witty and sassy, and I feel like he would just be the best friend in real life, so reading from his perspective was so much fun. And then I moved on to the 5th book. I read Defy Me. I actually read this one on my birthday, which wasn't my plan. I had a whole other book that I was going to read that day, but I simply could not put this series down. So I read this book and I flew through almost the entire thing that day because it was just so good. This one is tied with Ignite Me for my favorite in the series. So again, 5 stars hands down. This one is just so good. We have so many crazy things that happen in this one. My jaw dropped once again so many times. We get Kenji's POV in this one again, which was completely unexpected for me. We get more of Warner's POV. This one is just so exciting, and it's kind of building up towards the end of the series. So you have a lot of crazy things that happen. I just really loved this one. And then I moved on to the second to last novella. So I read Reveal Me, and this one again was from Kenji's POV, which I loved, but I especially love this one because you got to see him kind of crushing on someone, catching feelings for someone, and I really wanted Kenji to find love in this series, so that was really fun and unexpected, and I had the best time reading that one. And then I moved on to the last full book in the series, so I read Imagine Me, and this book was so different from every other book in the series. Like, so many crazy things happened in this one. It was just so fast-paced and gripping. I really enjoyed this one. This one is like the epitome of the dystopian genre, I feel like. Like, this is the type of book that I would have absolutely eaten up in middle school and high school. Like, I would have been so obsessed, like even more than I am now. So it made me really sad that I didn't read this series earlier in my life, but it was so good. I would say this was one of my least favorites in the series, but I still rated it 4 stars. So by no means was it a bad book. It was just that the others were better in my opinion, but I still really love this one. I really liked the ending. It was just so much fun. And then unfortunately, I moved on to the last novella in the series. I read Believe Me, and this was so bittersweet because I did not want the series to end, but I do feel like it was done so well. It was just a really great wrap up to the series. It was longer than all the other novellas, so you got more pages, more story, but it was really great because you got to kind of say goodbye to each character individually. You got to see how their ending was after everything that happened in the series. You got to see where they were at and just kind of wrap up everything really well, like just so well. And it was just really sweet and wholesome, and I loved it so much. And now I'm feeling sad that I can't go reread it for the first time. So it was a really great ending to the series, and as a whole, I would say the series is definitely a 5-star series. It's one of my favorite series I've ever read, and I will now be a new spokesperson for this series because I just loved it so much. I will tell everybody I know to read it that hasn't yet. So if you needed some sort of sign to go read the series or you've been thinking about it, just go do it. You will not regret it. It is so good. I loved it so much, and it was such a great way to spend the majority of my June. And then from there, I didn't really know what to read because I knew nothing would match up to shatter me, so I was kind of stuck. And then I remembered that I had a book club book to read because my friend Reagan on Instagram at Reads with Reagan, I'll link her down below, she has a book club called the Tea and Tropes Book Club, and the pick for June was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, and that just so happened to be available to me on Libby, so I decided to pick it up and see what I thought. And this was actually kind of funny because I told myself last year that I would never read a Tessa Bailey book. Like, I just wasn't interested. I didn't want to read one. So I told myself I wouldn't, and here we are. I read one and I'm not mad about it. Like, it was a good time. This is your typical summer set romance. It was very, very summery. I loved the vibes. I thought the romance was really cute. I loved Piper and Brendan, our couple in this book. They were really sweet together, and I feel like Brendan was really good for Piper. I also feel like Hannah, Piper's sister, was really sweet. Their sister relationship was one of my favorite sibling relationships I've read about, so that was really fun. And as far as Piper goes, I really loved her character because she had so much growth through this book. Like, the girl really needed to work on herself, and work on herself she did. She definitely grew a lot through this book, and that was just so much fun to see. The one issue I had with this book was the spice. Not because of how spicy it was. I knew it was going to be spicy. Tessa Bailey books are known for being spicy, and that wasn't my problem. It was how the spice was written. I was not a fan. I thought it was very cringy, and I literally found myself giggling at some points because I just could not sit there and read it with a straight face, which I definitely don't think is the goal of an author when they're writing spice, but that was just how it worked out for me. So that was my one issue with it, but other than that, I thought it was a really good time. I gave it 3 stars. It was just a really light, fun summer read. And then I moved on to, again, one of my favorite authors. I read Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter, and this one was really fun because I think this was the last book in her backlist that I had to read, so now I've read all of her books, which is so much fun. But this is technically the first book before The Love Wager. It's like an interconnected standalone, so you can read it in either order, but it's better to read one after the other. But this one became available to me second, so I read it second. But I had a really good time with this one. This one follows Colin and Olivia. Olivia is Jack's sister from The Love Wager, and basically Colin and Olivia knew each other in high school through Jack, so it's kind of like a brother's best friend type thing. Yeah, but basically they weren't friends in high school, and now Olivia is living with Colin and Jack while she's looking for an apartment, and they still don't have a great relationship. But then as time goes on, Colin kind of goes, maybe she's not my best friend's annoying little sister anymore. Maybe I kind of like her. And on the side, Olivia has been texting this guy who she calls Mr. Wrong Number. But then we find out, or Colin finds out, I guess, that he has been texting somebody from the wrong number too, and that person is Olivia. And this is not a spoiler because it says it on the back of the book. But basically he has to decide if he's going to ghost her or keep texting her, leading her on, kind of what's going to happen. And as you can probably guess, that gets a little messy, but it was just such a good romance. Again, the rom-com thing is just, Lynn Painter has it down, and I just thought it was such a fun read. I gave this one 3.5 stars, so definitely not as good as The Love Wager, but it was a very solid romance. And then I read one more book in June. I read What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walther. This is the same author who wrote The Summer Broken Rules, which is a book that I absolutely adore. So I was highly anticipating this one, really hoping I would love it as much as I loved that one. And unfortunately, that was not the case. I did enjoy this one, just not as much. So basically, this one follows a boarding school set on the beach, and it's like a week before graduation, and every year this boarding school has like a jester that's chosen in the graduating class who gets to play a prank on the school to have some fun before high school's over, and the jester gets to choose some students to help them. And our main character Lily is chosen to help the jester, and she finds out that this person is actually her ex-boyfriend Tag, who she still has feelings for. So you kind of follow them through the book, playing pranks on the school and having some fun and some adventure while also getting a second chance at romance. And it was really, really cute. There were some things that I loved and some things that I didn't love. So what I did love was the Gilmore Girl vibes in here, because our main character Lily and her mom and her mom's boyfriend were very much giving Luke, Lorelai, and Rory, and I love Gilmore Girls, so that was very fun. There were also a bunch of Taylor Swift references in here, which I enjoyed for the most part. It did eventually start to kind of feel almost like the author was playing like Taylor Swift Mad Libs, like she was just trying to fit in as many references as she could, but it was kind of fun to read about that if you're a Swiftie. And also I thought the romance was so cute. I really loved Lily and Tag. The issues I had with it were, first and foremost, I felt like the romance was so overshadowed because I thought this was supposed to be mostly focused on the romance, but it was definitely more focused on the pranks and the adventure, I guess, of it. So I was kind of surprised by that because I was expecting a lot more romance. Also, I feel like there were some things that happened in here that I was kind of just like, what? Like, basically the ends weren't tied up. There were some things that didn't make sense in the end that I was like, why did the author just let that happen and then just let it go? Like, why did it not ever get brought up again? So I felt like there was just a lot of unfinished business in this book, but overall it was really cute. I read it in one sitting. I gave it 3 stars, but I do think it was just like a fun, light read. And it did have some good summer vibes. So if you're just looking for like a fun, quick read, I would read it, but don't expect it to be like the best book ever. So those were all 12 books that I read in June. As I said, I feel like I definitely had a really good reading month. I did enjoy every book that I read, even if they weren't all perfect. I hope that July can be just as good, if not better, because I have had some rough reading months so far this year. So I'm hoping for some good ones for the rest of the year. But yeah, if you have read any of these books or read any really good books in June, I would love to hear about it. If you want to like, comment, and subscribe, that would help me so much, and all of my socials will be linked below, as always, if you want to be friends. So that was the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.